I hope everybody is having a great day, no matter where you are. But if you're not, let me try to give you a little bit of encouragement today. Did you know that misandry is a myth? Yep, that's right. Absolutely 100% true. In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. A large international research team put together and they published a paper called the Misandry Myth. So there we have it. See you later. If only it were that easy, right? So listen, let me tell you a little bit about this. I'll try not to make it too extensive for you today. Across 5 studies and a final meta-analysis of these authors' own results, they included 9,799 participants, just almost 8,000 participants from 9 different national contexts. And their conclusion was that feminists do not dislike men nearly as much as people assume. That's good news. Told you, I'm here to cheer you up. And they also said that the stereotype of feminists as hostile towards men is inaccurate. The news just keeps getting better and better. So with that title and nearly 10,000 participants, nearly 10,000, I said almost 8,000 a moment ago. It's actually, in fact, almost 10,000 participants. The paper sounds like a scientific answer to whether misandry exists. So today, I want to separate what this paper actually found from what its title encourages people to believe. Before we get in this, I'm just adding this context in here. This is a real theory. The authors did not talk about it. But I want to put this up here just for a little bit of context, and we're going to come back to it. This is espoused theory, and this is what people say they believe. It's the values, attitudes, and principles that they verbalize. And theory in use is what's revealed by their decisions, judgments, and their conduct. These are often used together, these two theories, to explain people's statements, their verbalizations, and their actual behaviors, right? So we're going to come back to this here in just a moment. A little bit more about this study, or the publication here. The full title is The Misandry Myth, an inaccurate stereotype about feminists' attitudes toward men. And these authors, I don't know why it takes so many people to write one paper, maybe because there were so many studies in it, I guess, but the authors wanted to compare feminists' reported attitudes toward men with those of non-feminists, and then compare those answers with what other people believed about feminists. So here's how they did their testing. They reported on 5 empirical studies, as I mentioned, and then combined the key results into a single final meta-analysis. So they kind of smushed all of the studies up together for a little bit of final results. So it's not a review paper of the entire research literature on misandry. It was one coordinated research program that was built around closely related definitions and measures. The sample in the 5 studies included university students, online convenience samples, and nationally representative samples from Poland and the UK. One large cross-national sample consisted of undergraduates averaging about 21 years old, and the representative samples strengthened the paper, but the outcome did remain broad, self-reported attitudes toward men. One smaller study in here also used an implicit association task. So participants they rapidly paired male words and names with positive or negative words. So that was apparently supposed to reduce reliance on a direct question about liking men. But it still apparently then measured a general male good, male bad association rather than judgment or behavior in a real dispute. So throughout the 5 studies that they reported on, here's a list of what they measured. And I'm intentionally going through them exhaustively for a reason. They measured whether participants identified as feminists, how strongly they identified as feminists, warmth or favorability toward men, liking or disliking men, trust or distrust of men, emotional reactions such as fondness, acceptance, hostility, and disdain, automatic positive or negative associations with men, perception of men as threatening, perceived similarity between men and women, hostile and benevolent stereotypes about men in one sample, support for feminist activism and Me Too, and beliefs about how feminists generally view men. And real quick, so for those of you who are new here, we got a lot of new subs on the channel because of the MGTOW video the other day. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I hope that my content continues to earn your subscription and that you stick around. Also want to mention, for those of you who are new, if you could, give me a follow over on X. I post my videos on there, at least links to them, so that you can get notified right away when things go up. So let's talk about the study results. The main result, of course, as you could imagine, was straightforward, that feminists and non-feminists both reported positive attitudes toward men. and the difference between the groups was small and statistically non-significant. Stronger feminist identification did not produce a general shift to openly negative attitudes toward men. And the implicit association study that I mentioned confirmed similar results. Participants generally associated male words with positive concepts, and feminists did not show a meaningful perception difference compared to non-feminists. Now, these researchers also found that people substantially underestimated feminists' reported warmth toward men. Participants expected feminists to feel much more negatively toward men than feminists said they did. And that's the gap that became their basis for calling the misandry stereotype inaccurate. But in the paper, they also report that feminists perceive men as a greater threat to women. Sounds a little counterintuitive. They don't dislike men, but men are the greater threat. Results also showed that they were more likely to agree that women live in fear because of men's aggression and that men harm, threaten, or diminish women in too many ways. Again, a little counterintuitive, I would think. Feminists also perceive men and women as more similar, they say, which was associated with warmer attitudes. But they can see that the negative threat pathways, the negative things I just mentioned, and the positive statements that they proclaim helped offset one another. So their ultimate conclusion? Yes, of course, feminists, on average, did not report generalized dislike of men. But let me tell you what they did not measure. And this is the fine print that I mentioned in this video's title. They did not measure women's propensity for DV. They did not measure any coercive control or psychological abuse, financial abuse of men. There's nothing in there about custody interference or parental alienation. No false allegations or exaggerated allegations. Nothing about how the men should be treated when they're victims. Nothing about thoughts regarding their ex-partners or husbands. No demands for spousal support. Those beliefs were not in there. Different judgments of identical male and female behaviors. Support laws and policies that discriminate against men. No police, court, custody, or employment records. No reports from their former partners themselves or any other observers. And no social desirability or self-deception bias. That one's always used as a control, or should be used as a control variable to help offset, and kind of basically it determines to what degree people are actually being honest with us. So what we really learn. The study tells us that ordinary self-identified feminists usually do not think of themselves as women who hate men. But it also shows that they can report warmth toward men while holding stronger beliefs that men collectively threaten women. Now, I don't know how many feminists or non-feminists in these studies that they did ever slapped a man because they could get away with it. How many of them made a false accusation? How many of them alienate their children from their former husband or partners? I have no idea because they didn't report it, but I'm telling you, it ain't zero. And none of this tells us whether they apply equal standards to male and female victims, parents, defendants, or perpetrators. Warmth is not conduct. A statement is not a behavior. Liking doesn't mean that someone is fair. Positive feelings toward men without assessing social desirability does not show what happens when a man's political beliefs collide with a feminist's. This is where the self-image protection really matters. People rarely organize their own wrongdoing under labels such as prejudice, dishonesty, or even hatred. They interpret what happened in a way that preserves their own moral identity. And remember this right here? Espoused theory is what, again, as I mentioned, people say they believe. It's the values, attitudes, and principles that they claim guide their behavior, while theory in use is what actually guides them in practice, and it's revealed by their decisions, judgments, and conduct. It's the behaviors. And that important point is that the two can be very, very different. A feminist may say that she likes and respects men while still treating them shitty and unfairly during conflict, custody, allegations, or anything else. And as many of you have pointed out in my videos before, and you're spot on when you do, it's always much more important to pay attention to people's behaviors than what comes out of their mouths. A woman can describe interference between a father and his children as protection of the children. And she can say that her aggression is self-defense. She can make any of those claims. But once the acts become safety or justice, she can continue proclaiming herself as a compassionate and fair person. That doesn't require a calculated lie. A sincere, self-serving interpretation passes cleanly through a warmth-type survey like these because the feminist doesn't want to connect her treatment of one man with hostility toward men as a group. But that's exactly what they do to men. Imagine a paper titled The Misogyny Myth, because men said that they don't hate women and associated female names with positive words. While researchers never examined harassment, discriminatory hiring, or credibility of female victims. The deepest problem with the Misandry myth is the fine print of what's actually missing from the study measures. That a woman who discriminates against men must consciously experience herself as hostile toward men. Unequal treatment survives through social desirability, and aggression hides as gender-biased self-defense. Custody interference, feminists will tell you, is protecting the children, as I mentioned. So these authors try to convince people that most feminists do not describe themselves as man-haters. But they do not establish that misandry is a myth. Not even close. The only thing that they established is that when you ask questions to get the answers you want, you'll get the answers that you want. So there's more junk research for you. If researchers genuinely want to know whether anti-male prejudice exists, they need to stop relying on whether women say they like men and start measuring how men are actually treated. Let me know in the comments what behaviors or decisions you would put in a serious study of misandry. Cheers, guys, and I'll be back soon.